All right. Hello, everyone. We've got people piling in here. All of our attendees. I see that number just skyrocketing and bouncing up here. I know I think the last time I checked, it was almost 200, but that was yesterday. So we've got a lot of people very interested in this topic today, and rightly so, because a lot of it is at the core and the foundation of your business. What are you actually going to be offering, to your potential prospects, to your clients, to make money, at this business? And so I'm very excited to talk about this today. My name is Allison Felber. I am the VP of Big Red Media here at TMT. I'm also the editor-in-chief of MSP Success. MSP Success, you're on this webinar that we're hosting. And so our mission, is to provide the MSP community with trends, with news, with what's coming in our industry that is hyper-specific for MSPs. We're not out there for, the IT directors, who are in these large corporations. It's about us, our community, and our MSP tribe. And so we do a lot of things like education, like this webinar, how to build your tech stack. We've got, a print publication that we put out, a couple times a year. So we're glad to have you here, as a part of our community. And we've got a very interesting webinar today. I've been wanting to do this or some sort of variation of it for a long time now. And just logistically, it's been hard to get, everybody, the people that I want, people you see here, on this webinar. And we are very blessed to have these three gentlemen with us here today. Each of them have, a reputation in our industry for being very knowledgeable about this. And they're going to kind of bring some different opinions, some different takes, some things to look at. But, what we are covering, today is, how to build your tech stack. How do you look at your tech stack? And this is not only for you if you are just starting out and kind of thinking about what should my solution be. It's for those who may have been in business for 10, 15, 20, 25 plus years. And how do you reevaluate your stack? How do you look at the new technologies that are out there and decide if it should go in your stack, if it fits, if it's something that you should add to it? You're at a trade show and you see all the new technology and the shiny new pennies. Is it something that you do spend time on? So no matter where you're at, in your journey of running your MSP, you're going to get some really, really good nuggets out of this. So who do I have on here today? I'll have each of them kind of give like a brief introduction so you can kind of understand, who they are and where they're at in their business. So you can kind of figure out, who do you kind of align with best. So I've got, first of all, I'll go with Will, Mr. Blue Suit, Will Nobles, CEO of Vector Choice, also a client coach at TMT. Will, can you just give a little kind of brief overview, how long you've been in business, the size of your business, if there's any verticals you specialize in, things that may affect your decision-making when you're evaluating new technologies?
Sure. Yeah. My company is Vector Choice Technologies. We've started in 2008, and we started out just me as a small company, and we've grown it, and now we're right around 18 million, going to closing out this year. And our verticals, you know, we our four top ones is CPAs, manufacturing, legal, and finance is our top four verticals.
Okay. Yeah. So in a very short amount of time, you said 2008. Is that when you said you got started?
Yeah, 2008. Yep.
Yeah. So, very, very small, just getting started, starting from scratch all the way through to where you are now. So experience at a lot of different levels of adding things to your solution deck, right?
Absolutely. That's where all the gray hair comes from, between employees and clients and picking the right tech stack, and going with that. So yeah, we've definitely looked at different tech stacks over the years. We've changed, we've modified. When I came into the business, I came from consulting for enterprise level clients, and where you had to have the best in class products. And hence CloudStrike, right? You had to have that quadrant of type things, and it doesn't mean it's the best. It just means that it's marketed the best, right? And then you get buy-in big corporate. But I think as MSPs, as a owner of a company, you have to be more cost conscious and when developing your tech stack and looking at, do you really need the best? If you have layers of security, do you have to have the best of everything? And quite frankly, medium and small businesses cannot afford the best of everything. So why not look at things that you can consolidate down and have one one tool set that you can use. And really, and then it comes down to your goal as a managed services provider is to cut down on the how much labor you need, right? So if I can cut down on the clicks between products and everything, so we actually try to find things that are bundled together that integrate very well when we're choosing our tech stacks and stuff.
Okay, all right. And speaking of all the gray hair you've gotten from that, let's go to Tommy.
Thanks a
No,
lot.
you mean the note here?
I've got a harder start than Will.
Yeah, so Tommy Thornton, CEO of Automates over in California. Give our attendees just kind of a high level, size of business, how long you've been in business, if there's any verticals, things like that.
Yeah, perfect. Guys, Tommy Thornton Automates. We operate out of San Diego, California. We kind of got started when we considered a start in 2019. We're around 200K in revenue, and we're chasing 3 million now. We've had tremendous success in the industry, and our main primary verticals, CPAs, law firms, and that niche.
Okay, great. So fast growth, just a couple years. 200,000 to 3 million. So again, just like Will, you've kind of been at, a lot of different stages that I'm sure attendees on this are. And it may look a little different at each stage on how you evaluate tech.
Oh, absolutely. For us, we started off with, just trying to get the RMM in place so we can, do MSP services. And from there, we've obviously learned a great deal in a short amount of time, and we're trying our best. And just like Will said, we found better success in bundling our services. That's a better way to go. And like Will said, is CrowdStrike is not necessarily the best, but it's definitely the most expensive. And that's, the shiny objects is what we are attracted to. But now, like Will said again, it's about saving money, reducing ticket count, and seeing what we can manage from a single pane of glass, and that's more beneficial to our service delivery team. Happy techs, happy company.
Yeah. Okay, great. Last but certainly not least, we've got Mike DePalma, VP of Business Development at Kaseya, and we brought him on to bring a different perspective. We've got two MSPs here, different sizes, different verticals as well. But, there's a whole nother lens to look at this at too, which is why we've got Mike on here. And also because you deal all day, every day with the MSP community. And so you're kind of bringing the collective voice and the collective experience from, the entire industry, right?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I started out with Datto, and it's been a total of about 10 years. So sticking with the gray hair theme, there might be a reason why I have gray hairs. It might have started after the after the acquisition, but everything is settled down, everything is good. So for me, I've been extremely blessed with some of the mentors I've been able to work with. I started out on the sales team and then moved over to the business development team under Rob Ray, got to work with Eric Torres, who's with ScalePad now, and Christine Gassman. And after the acquisition, now my direct boss is Dan Tomaszewski, which I know a lot of folks in the industry know, and Gary Pica. So I've been able to learn so much from those mentors, but basically my job for the last 10 years is to be out on the road at these events. So hopefully I've met a lot of the folks that are on the webinar today. And so, you get to learn a lot from those conversations that you have at the bar, at dinner, more so than at the booth, really. And, we about 3 months ago, I wound up taking over the True Methods group. So that's Gary Pica's True Methods, True peer group. And it's been great for me. I mean, a lot of times you're just kind of a fly on the wall, listening to partners and seeing what their all-in seat price, where they came up with that, all of that types of stuff. So these are the fun conversations to have. And seeing some of the folks that I onboarded as a sales rep 10 years ago that were in the scenario where it was just them working out of their kitchen, to see them now at 15, 20, 25 employees with their face on a banner when you go to an event, or speaking at one of your events, it's really cool to see. So these are the type of webinars I raise my hand for every time.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you for representing the collective. So first question, and we're going to get into some questions here. If you have questions throughout this, please ask them. We've got the Q&A that you can put them into. We welcome all sorts of questions. We purposefully saved a good amount of time at the end here because we always get a lot of questions when we do this topic, to where you can ask, any one of these guys something specific. So you may have a question coming into this that you wanted to get answered when you registered. Throw it up there now. If I don't answer right away, it's because I'm saving your question till the end. But maybe start out putting in there. If you've got one question that you went in here trying to get answered, or you were hoping to get an answer to, or advice or feedback, put it into that Q&A box. And we'll be sure to spend some time on it at the end, because I want you to leave here with some answers and some action items. So first, Tommy and Will, can you tell me, tell me about your stack right now and kind of how you put it together. And I guess, Will, we'll start with you just because, you haven't talked in a while. Let's give you some airtime again.
Exactly. So, really when it comes down to it, your PSA is your primary tool. PSA, RMM is your two primary tools as the MSP that you need. And those two tools you want to integrate. So I think there's three factors in when we're making decisions at Vector Choice. One, does the tools integrate well together? Cost is always a factor for anything that you do in business. And then three, is it the buy-in from your team? Because you don't want to have a tool that your team does not enjoy using on a day-to-day basis because you can kill morale, you kill ticket times, and customer service, and it just flows down, right? So we're looking at that. And then when we're bringing on different tools, and we're always looking for tools, right? Anything that one can improve the experience for the customer as well as upsell to the customers as well. And as we're building packages and adding packages for each year, we're looking for new tools. So again, more they can integrate together. And then when we evaluate a tool, we're looking at the tool. Okay, is it something that we have a hole in our stack that we can fill with that new tool? And then we evaluate that tool, we stress test the tools. So I don't pick a tool, and I'm not picking on Kasey here, but I don't pick a tool because of the name, right? I pick a tool because of what it costs me. I have buy-in from from my techs, and then as well as can it integrate and streamline my processes so I can be more profitable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So integration, cost, do your techs like it? Do you have their buy-in? Does it fill a hole in your tech stack, or is it something that you can add on to, right? Kind of the
Yep.
four most important things you're looking at.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Tommy?
For us, it was similar, but since Will's looking back to 2008, and I'm looking back just a few years, it was about just accomplishing the mission to begin with. We didn't start off with Kaseya products or anything like that. We didn't move into a high quality PSA with Autotask or a Data RMM until recently. But for us, it was about accomplishing the mission. We looked at what the customer needed. And then, like Will said, we looked at our service delivery team, trying to keep our techs happy. And now it's about filling those vulnerability gaps, what's missing from our services, and filling those gaps as quickly as we can as we increase revenue, increase profitability to be able to afford additional tools and certainly better tools. Again, it's not always the most expensive tools, but we look at integration. We look at how well the tech team adapts to it. One important thing is we also look at tools, what purchasing possibly one tool and how many tools it can replace. A big example of that is Datto. Looking at all the tools and cost savings, moving to Datto RMM, especially with, I think we're going to get into probably Kaseya 365, looking at how many tools that Kaseya 365 has replaced and saved us while filling in those gaps. So altogether, we also evaluate our tool set constantly. I try to limit to myself to demoing one vendor a quarter. However, we're trying to add to our tool set at least one additional tool of service a quarter as well to keep different lines of business going.
Okay, so if I'm kind of repeat back just so when you first started out, it wasn't necessarily let's try and do everything. It was no, we've got a mission. Let's get our core set of tools. Once you've got that, then you can start looking at, okay, what else can we do? What else can we add on? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, it's really important, especially when you're first starting off. You don't want to get overspent on tools. You don't want to have too many tools. You want to kind of build into it and ramp into it as quickly as you can. Maybe you're not going to offer the top of the line cybersecurity services until you really get a footing in the industry. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that until you get a real strong footing. So we quickly as we could ramped into a full security stack, and that's where we're at now. We're still adding pieces. We're not perfect. We're still adding pieces.
Yeah, I think I mean, just how our industry is, you're probably always going to be adding pieces. You know, the opportunities are endless as this industry continues to grow, and whether there's new solutions, new threats. I mean, I don't think your tech stack is ever really set. I mean, would you guys agree?
No, I agree. I mean, when I started 16 years ago, PSA, RMM, AV, and backup, right? That's your four things you must haves that you have. And then it sort of is built upon that. And I share, because I do a lot of coaching, I share my tech stack with TMT members and everything. And they get overwhelmed. I'm like, hey, don't overthink it, right? You've got to start somewhere. If you don't have a PSA yet, then you've got a bigger problem. Don't worry about cybersecurity tools. Let's get a PSA in place and then build upon that. But you can't start as a $18 million company, or even with Tommy, 3 to 4 million in size. You can't get where, if you're a startup or $1 million company, it takes years to get up. Now, I will say, with what Kaseya has been doing over the years and consolidating this down, and the K365 makes it a lot easier to jump faster into the more cybersecurity things.
Okay, so I want to get in just a couple minutes, and like what you do recommend kind of at each level. Mike, what do you kind of hear, out in the community as, how should you really look at your stack and evaluate your stack?
Yeah, I think, to Will's point, when it comes to cybersecurity, there's never that final page in the book. Like, you're always going to be adding and be evolving. And that's, it's the exciting part. I will say, if you're looking at it, and it's difficult as an MSP to vet all these vendors and put together your stack, take a step back and think about what kind of opportunity that leaves the channel. Because think about trying to do that in-house if you're a small business, right? Like, it's next to impossible. So that's why the opportunity for the channel has grown so much. But, one of the common themes I've seen over the 10 years I've been here is when folks start to grow is when they take that tech hat off to some extent and become a business owner and start vetting it, not based on the bells and whistles and the shiny objects, because those are the folks that wind up not necessarily growing, because they're not understanding how they turn these products into a profitable business model. And that's a common theme. So, and it usually clicks. And if you talk to those folks that broke through the 7 figures and then started rapidly getting to 3 million, 5 million, it was that moment, it was that aha moment that you're saying, hey, look, I'm going to take a step back to both Will and Tommy's point, getting a product in there that your techs want to use and you can trust that they are going to be the ones using it. That means, hey, maybe you could take a vacation instead of being the guy all the time, right? Those are the type of things that we see. And as vendors, those are the problems we're always trying to solve.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with Mike there, Allison. I was stuck. I've got 2 degrees in engineering. I came from enterprise, consulting for enterprise. It had to be the best. Like, I was a Cisco guy, and it had to be the Cisco ASA, well, back there PIX, and then ASA, and it had to be command line. But then when Cisco Meraki came out, it was a GUI, and I was like, hell no, we're not going to a GUI firewall. That's not going to be secure, right? But by letting that go, I didn't have to be the person to always do the configuration. So, and I think more that you can get consolidated tools and get out of your own way. I always talk about getting out of your own damn way, and having engineer hat on will get you but so far as a business owner. But then you definitely, I agree with Mike, you got to put the business hat on.
The other thing is too, is you can have a tool, something like, a high-end Cisco router, but you have to have somebody that's managing that. And then having the tools that you can do from a single pane of glass, that kind of makes it easier. Now, which is benefiting the customer more? Something that you really can't have tech on 100% of the time looking, or is it going to be something from a single pane of glass that's fully integrated, that's easy for the techs to manage? I think it's serving our customers better having, a bundled product, something that can be read from a single pane of glass, something a level 1 can come in and pick right up on. It gives us the freedom, like to Mike's and Allison's point too, to kind of step back, and now we can look at tools from a different light completely.
Yeah, absolutely. A completely different lens and frame of mind to be, okay, I'm not looking at this as a tech, I'm looking at this as a business owner. And how do I use this to grow my business, to serve my clients better, and not just which one has the coolest set of features. So I want to get into, think back to when you first, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but like when you are kind of just getting started out, it's not the point where you're looking at the most advanced, cybersecurity solutions. Like, what should a tech stack look like at the beginning?
I'll shoot first.
Good.
Yeah, for me, it was, just a few years ago, it was, uh, to Will's point, we needed a PSA. We needed something that we can do tickets on. But I actually went a little bit backwards than that. We were manually doing our PSA and tickets, as keeping up with it and tracking it as best we could. We went to RMM route. Hindsight 2020, I wish we would have went the other way, but it was really RMM, PSA, obviously with some kind of backup and antivirus, and we built dramatically from there. We entered into advanced for cybersecurity stack, and that's what we developed first. But all in all, through that process too, we actually upgraded our PSA, upgraded our RMM. We got a little bit better there. We started realizing that with a better RMM, a better PSA, it enters in all these new lines of businesses that we never even realized having a weaker product or a lesser tool, if you will. So that's how we built our stack in the beginning. For us, it was, what it looked like on day one. It was horrible. It was horrible looking back, but we made it work until we can get better tools. And it wasn't until I got off the keyboard. I had to get off the keyboard before it started really clicking.
Mm-hmm. Will, anything you want to add to that, kind of at the very beginning, what it looks like and kind of the next growth after that?
Yeah, I mean, I always say it's really nine tools that you sort of to be a real MSP is nine tools. You got your PSA, your RMM, some type of endpoint protection, backup, a documentation tool, a quoting tool so you can actually win deals, a billing tool so you can actually collect the money on the the deals that you win, a payment tool to be able to accept payments, and I wholly believe don't take checks. I only do credit card and ACH only in my company at 18 million. And then some kind of CRM that you can actually market. So that to me, that those are the nine critical tools that you have, and then build upon that with all the other things that are out there.
Okay, so I'm sure people are gonna be like, oh, I was writing that down too fast. Okay, let's go over that again, kind of.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll post in the chat. So PSA, RMM, endpoint protection, backup, documentation tool, quoting tool, billing tool, payment tool, and a CRM for marketing.
Okay, I got all those. Check.
Tommy's like, all right, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Check.
There's your MSP in a box right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
MSP in the box.
So I want to talk next about, vetting new tools. And Tommy, you alluded a little bit to, we upgraded, our tool. I don't know if you meant upgraded the features or upgraded in terms of you went with a different one.
Mhm.
Let's talk, I want to break this up. Let's talk first about how do you vet your existing tools? Is this RMM still working for me? Is this CRM still working for me? Like, let's look at our existing, and then after we talk about that, we'll talk about looking at, shiny new pennies, and do we want to take that on and add it to our stack? I don't know who has initially some first thoughts about that.
Yeah.
How do you look at your existing tools and knowing when it's time to upgrade or move?
There's three things that we look at. Number one, if I'm looking or chasing a new line of business, if I see something that can add revenue to the business, then I'm demoing out the products. I'm actually actively looking for a tool to serve that purpose, and I may lean on my service delivery team to help me out. If it's something that the techs are looking at, then I'll have my techs actually demo the product and then find something that they're happy with, and then I'll give the yay or nay. And then the other one is if we can hear it in the industry or if our customers are asking, that is obviously we're going to chase that tool. If it's something that's missing or if a customer is asking for it, if we see that it's profitable, that's where we're going to go with it. So, I run everything now through Profit Fuel. If I have a question, that's my first place to go. Now, the techs may go a little bit different. They're scouring the internet. Maybe they found something that they like on Reddit or something and checking out, whatever. But my first place to turn right now is Profit Fuel. But I do limit myself to how many demos I do a year, just because it can be a time suck sometimes going through it unless you go through the proper way. So I hope that helps.
And how did you know, bounce over the other guys here in a minute, but one little quick follow-up question. How did you know that it was time to upgrade or switch or move out of one of your core pieces of your stack?
Well, how do I know is when a service delivery team starts complaining, or if they say, "Hey, I wish we had this feature. Hey, this other tool." Look, when you're hiring a service delivery team and you're building this, the engineers are coming with you with experience, maybe from another MSP or maybe from somewhere else in the IT industry. And so they're putting these little, planting these little seeds. Hey, I used to have this. Hey, we used to have something like this. And it just cues you in to start looking at different things. But as far as me, it's tends to be money.
Mm-hmm.
Money
Okay.
moves me. Yeah.
And Mike, you're dealing with, working with MSPs, all day, every day at kind of, looking at, their stack. What are some of the key pieces of advice that you give to an MSP when they are vetting new solutions and some things that they may not think to look for or consider?
Yeah, so actually, when I'm talking to my team, the folks that are out on the road and they're doing the presentations and working the booth, I tell them, based on my experience, usually MSPs are looking for four things when they want to talk to you. So you don't have to go shiny objects. The first one is, does it solve a problem? Does it solve a need for that MSP? Then the second one is the most obvious one is, does it work, right? I mean, all of this is fine and good, and that goes back to making sure that the techs understand it. The third one is, are you going to be supported by that vendor? And I don't, tech support, obviously everybody's got tech support, but I also mean, to Will's point, on the sales and marketing side, developing that relationship. Like, this is an industry where you need to feel like you have a relationship with somebody there. And then the fourth one, and for the business owners, the most important is, can I make money off of this? That is typically what it comes down to. And that comes from me having conversations when we used to have our advisory board and our team oversaw it and having those conversations. It was interesting. We've done studies about how people vet vendors and how they find vendors. It typically is at an event. It was a well over 50% of people said they chose that vendor because they met them at an event. So I try to reiterate that. Get to these events, talk to people, because it's not just the vendors, it's talking to the other MSPs. I think you get more value out of that. And I'm saying that as a vendor. You're going to learn more from sitting down and having a coffee with Will or Tommy than you are from the vendor specifically. But those are the four main things that commonly come up. And that's what I tell my team is to focus on those things, because that's what really resonates with the MSP space.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point too about that, are you supported? I used to work at an MSP. And so you're right. It's not just, will they respond if I'm having an issue? Like, do they support my growth? And like, do they understand what I'm facing? And are they there to help, provide different solutions and help me grow the business too? So Will, what about, how do you vet new solutions, whether it's upgrading an existing solution that you have or adding on something new?
Well, I'll tell you, I hate upgrading because it costs so much money and time. And really the money comes in the time of my engineers actually changing, right? So, and we're way too big now just to willy-nilly change unless it's a cost benefit or whatever to us. And I used to say, I had Autotask when I first started, and then I went to ConnectWise, and I was with ConnectWise for years. And up until about last year, I always used to say, I don't care what tool it is, I will not change my PSA, or I'll sell the company before I change because it's so much headache, right? And so me and Mike Bazaar merged our companies together July last year. He was using Autotask, I was using ConnectWise. We actually we had the engineers that use the product evaluate the tools, and they chose Autotask. They chose we were both in Enable. We never thought we were going to leave in Enable because both companies were with Enable. We bought two companies the month after that, and one had ConnectWise Automate, and one had Data RMM. And we actually evaluated bringing four companies together, and my techs wanted Data RMM. So and there you go, right? It wasn't about Kaseya, it wasn't about ConnectWise, it was about cost, benefit to my techs, and what my engineers wanted. Me as a guy that I don't even think I have a login to either what systems anymore. So
Kicked you out. They're
I
like, please don't get in here.
who cares, right? And this is what I think the engineer and all of us care about the tool, where we shouldn't care about the tool as long as the tool is doing what we need for the company and cost effectiveness. And I think there's so many engineers minded people or tech minded people let that get in their way. But going to how we evaluate things is, one, we will do a demo hey, it fits a hole? Is it look like that the techs like it? Then we turn over and let the techs stress test it for 30, 60 days and try to break it. If it's a security tool, I give it to my security team and we try to break it. For example, we were with, can I say names on here?
Name
It doesn't
drop, go
matter.
for it.
Okay, so we were with Blackpoint, which is a great tool. But we were having some issues, and we looked at Rocket Cyber. We stress test both of them together. I mean, these are my security guys. And Rocket Cyber caught more things, did better than Blackpoint. Now, again, Blackpoint's a good tool, but cost made a difference. So we switched over to Rocket Cyber about 18 months ago. So, yes, we will switch if a tool is fundamentally not performing the way it should and the vendor is not helping us overcome those issues, right? That, don't switch tools. It's too hard to switch tools unless there is a fundamental reason to do that.
Mhm. Okay.
I would agree with everything Will said. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you, we talked about a couple, bigger platforms out there. Do you recommend going with kind of piecemealing out your different solutions, or would you recommend going with kind of some of these bundles that are out there? I know you talked about kind of single pane of glass, Tommy, that was important to you. So I might be able to guess your answer, but give me a little bit of context when you're looking at those two different routes you can take with your tech stack. What are the pros and the cons, and what did both of you end up doing?
We always, I got into it wanting to bundle as much as I could, but the problem is until recently, we haven't been able to. It's been very little bundles out there as far as what I can see until obviously Kaseya 365, I think, has completely changed market, so we definitely hopped on K365 immediately. But outside of that is I'm tired of piecemealing. I simply don't have the time for it. I still will if there's a tool out there that I absolutely need that does a key feature for me. I'll still go after it and I'll use it, but I'm looking at integration always. Anything that I can do to reduce workflow, to automate the processes, to reduce ticket count, that's what I'm after. We keep a very low average open ticket count here, and that's one of the things that we strive for.
Okay.
Yeah. If you'd asked me that same question 7 years ago as a enterprise-minded person and as a true engineer, I wanted it separate because I didn't want all my eggs in one basket. I was scared of that. I was scared of what that vendor is. That vendor stable? What would they do to me if I don't pay my bill? Yeah, how does that affect my business, right? And well, we want to get into paying bills, so you should pay your bills. But and that's why you should charge enough so you can pay your bills. That's a whole nother session, Allison. We can
That's
teach
next week.
next week. And so if you'd asked me a long time ago, 7+ years ago, I would have said separate because of the eggs in one basket and getting best in class. Putting more and more a business hat on, I want streamline. I want one throat to choke. I want to be able to integrate. The more I integrate, the less employees I have. I love my employees, but I always joke if I didn't have employees and clients, I would have a great business. But the less employees you have to deal with, the less headaches, and then just the integration, and then total, you're more profitable at that point. So to me, bundles and integration wins today.
Okay. And Mike, which side of the camp do you sit on? I can kind of assume knowing, but like, I mean, you hear the objection. What are some of the objections you hear, and how do you respond to those?
I think the number one objection is what Will just said. A lot of folks will say, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. But on the same token, when we run our state of the channel report, year after year, vendor sprawl is one of the biggest pain points. So it's kind of a catch-22. Like you're telling us in a survey that this is a big pain point for you. An average MSP works with 17 different vendors. That's 17 different tech supports, account managers, bills, all these things. So I trust the survey a little bit more than the kind of one-off comments, because I think when people think about it and they're business minded, that's what helps drive our roadmap, our surveys like that, to try to solve an issue that the channel is telling us, not just us in a bubble saying, hey, this would be really cool. Instead, listening to the partners and saying, like, this is what MSPs are really caring about. And it's much different than the enterprise space. And I think some vendors, you got to, when you're vetting a vendor, you really have to understand, do they understand the MSP space? I sit on a lot of cool councils with a lot of executives from large companies, and I could tell you not to call them out, but they don't understand the MSP space. They know they need to break into it, but they don't understand it. They can't speak that language, and it is different. So you have to talk to a vendor that understands the product through the lens of an MSP.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, going back to kind of what you were saying there, Tommy, too, is just the efficiency that it can create too. And you spoke to it too, Mike. If you've got 17 different tools, 17 different portals, 17 different reps, 17 different ways to get support. I mean, back when I worked in MSP, we had someone like their job was vendor management, because you have all these different vendor relationships that you're trying to manage. And me being on the marketing side, I felt a tiny little bit of the pain where it's like I had 17 different marketing portals to log into and 17 different MDF programs and 17 different vendors trying to get me to market them. It's messy. It's messy.
Anything that can eliminate some of the stress of running an MSP. Everyone on this call knows running an MSP it's hard. It's difficult. Anything that you can eliminate stress, anything that you can make your team happier, streamline the processes, automate workflows, automate any kind of ticketing, everything helps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I've got a couple questions. Like I said, we're saving some time, at the end for questions. And so go ahead, put your questions either, into the chat. We'll see it there, or the Q&A box. I've got a couple queued up here. But, Mike, we've been talking about, Kaseya 365, the platform versus piecemealing, and how do you evaluate, tech and build your stack. And so I wanted to give you just a couple minutes to kind of walk the audience through Kaseya 365, obviously newly announced just this year. I'm sure if you're in this industry, you've at least heard about it, but may not really understand what it is and what it's doing to our industry. So I'm going to give you the floor here for just a couple minutes, and then we'll get to everybody's questions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Ultimately, again, thinking about solving a problem that exists. I mentioned the vendor sprawl piece, and if you've been to events and seen us, we've had a whole rebrand where it's IT Complete, which is essentially a platform that we have 40 different business units that have either come from acquisition like Datto or developed in-house, with the idea of trying to eliminate some of that vendor sprawl and be able to single pane of glass, single portal, go in and manage all these products. That's something that techs have been asking for and business owners as well. So IT Complete has been a vision for 10 years or so to have this single pane of glass. And what Kaseya 365 does is really turns that into a product. For the first time. And we talk a lot about bundles. This isn't necessarily a bundle. This is a single subscription. So I kind of want to get off of that a little bit. But the idea is, can we have a single subscription that could fully manage, detect, secure, and back up that endpoint? And what we were able to do, again, because, joint engineering teams, we were able to say, yeah, we can do that. With a single subscription, you can get an RMM. And with the case of Kaseya 365, you could use VSA or Datto RMM. That's another question I get all the time. Like, how do you have two backup products? How do you have Unitrends and Datto? How do you have these things? It actually, there's no risk of either one of those going away. We've actually done cost modeling. It would cost us a lot more, but it would also cause so much frustration to our partners. And so we're running those in parallel paths, and you learn a lot. And it's actually pretty fun internally seeing the GMs for all those products compete with one another to say which one's better. But you start with that RMM. Then you're able to say, okay, I could install an antivirus. It will have ransomware detection, an EDR, and that Rocket Cyber that Will mentioned, the managed SOC as well. And then you have the endpoint backup, all within one subscription. And so this is the one tool that you can now go in and check off these boxes. And it really is going off much faster than even we thought internally. We released it, I guess it's coming on 3 months now, and we've got over 4,000 partners using Kaseya 365, over 5 million endpoints with Kaseya 365. And the key part of this really is not just integrations, it's automations. We've got 20 plus core automations that are included in this. And this is where our engineers are really, really focused. Because again, what's the partner base asking for? This. Right? They're asking for, okay, I want to eliminate some of this vendor sprawl. I want to make sure that there's integrations, but also automations, to Will's point, right? We want to speed things along because you're going to grow only in 3 ways. You're going to try to add new clients. You're going to add additional products to your existing client base, and you're going to become more efficient so that you're actually receiving that profitability. So the other problem that it's solving, and we see it, is that on average, you know, a business is going to have three main consultants: their accountant, their attorney, and their managed service provider. Now, the accountants and the attorneys are getting margins of 30, 40+%. On average, an MSP is getting around 8 to 10%, depending on what study you see. Why is that? When you're actually the one that they talk to more than anybody else, and they're more dependent on you, right? So we're trying to elevate that because the math just doesn't make sense. So what this allows you to do is become more profitable. If you were to buy all of those products through Kaseya individually, it would cost you a little over $13. The pricing on this is $525. Now, if you have any of those products, we actually extended our promotional price to $399 through the end of the month. And so what we're trying to do is put that money back in your pocket. This is not a reduction in cost so that you can now undercut your competitors. That's not the mentality here. And Tommy and Will tell you that's not the way to grow. The way to grow is to say, now I'm making $8 extra every single one of my endpoints. And in some cases, if that partner or that client of yours doesn't have something like managed SOC, you're adding additional value to them while still, gaining more profits. And if it is a client that you don't need, managed SOC for, we've got an express model that's basically all of those tools with the exception of that managed SOC. So, we talk about the golden age of the channel, and we've been saying that since before the acquisition. It's been part of our spiel because we've seen the data behind this, especially coming out of COVID. The companies that were able to survive during COVID were the ones working with an MSP. That's just a fact. So kudos to everybody on this call because that's just the truth. And now that's why we've seen such a boom in this space. In the SMB space, the spend on technology for SMBs is growing 4.5 times the rate of GDP. 10 years ago, all the big vendors wanted to get into the enterprise space because that's the people that were spending money because they understood the threats. Now it's the small business space that's saying, hey, there are tools available that I could actually afford. And I now know I need them because the criminals are attacking me. Now, all of a sudden, you'll see all the vendors trying to come down into the SMB space, and they know in order to get there, they have to go through the channel. So we're looking to try to solve a lot of problems within this one subscription, the Kaseya 365, but we're also trying to understand the channel even more. My job ultimately in channel enablement is to take the feedback and be your advocate when I go to leadership meetings to say, this is what the channel is telling me. And we have a running list within our team. What pain points did you hear? And on a monthly call, I'm able to go present that, alongside Dan and Gary and all those folks. And, one of the things, transparently, people would always be frustrated with Kaseya is 3-year contracts, 3-year contracts. I heard it all the time. And actually, when I was with Datto, I used to sell against it. So I know all of that stuff. Now, we could have a business conversation of why you probably should have 3-year contracts with all your clients. But we listened and said, yeah, we have 1-year contracts available to you if that's your business model. Okay. Flex spend is critical. That means you could move your spend amongst other products. It's big in the BCDR space, which is dear to my heart coming from Datto. But if you've got folks that are now, you want to move to the cloud, but you've got 2 years remaining on your contract with this BCDR device, what do? I need to back up that as well. We've got Datto backup for Microsoft Azure, and you could actually just shift that cost to that other product. So it's not adding additional services that you're not using anymore. Now we have that with all of the products. And I've seen it in action. It allows you to move some money around. And then we do have month-to-month contracts for the BCDR devices, which is another one that folks have been asking for. So this is our partner pledge that I'm very proud of because it's something that us taking the feedback directly from the channel and incorporating it into what we do. So that's a kind of brief synopsis of Kaseya 365. Again, a single subscription allows you to manage those endpoints, secure them, back them up, and then most importantly, automate as many of these processes as possible so that you can be profitable.
Yeah, I love it. Such a game changer, for the industry. I know, the vision that, Fred and Kaseya has, it's an exciting time to be in this industry. And again, to see MSPs be able to get the profitability that they deserve, quite frankly. So, Will and Tommy, why we've talked about, evaluating your tech stack. What was it about Kaseya 365? And both of you on Kaseya 365? Yes.
Yep.
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 Yep. What was it about it that made you make the switch or move in that direction? And then as a follow-up to that, what was the experience like making that move? And while you guys are answering that, I'm going to pop up a poll real quick for anybody if you want to get some more information about, Kaseya 365. But Will, let's start with you.
Yeah, to me, it was a no-brainer. We were already using all the products besides EDR, AV, and backup. And we were already using all the other products. and it immediately saved me money by cutting the other products out. And I mean, obviously it's only been 3 months, and I think I signed up about 3 weeks after it was announced. Obviously, a bigger company, we're slower to move and on things. So we signed up. So we're still in the process of getting everything cut over. But it made sense. It immediately saved me money over the time period that's coming up, right? And I'm going to continue reaping the rewards of savings going forward as well. So our packages that we already sort of had, everything that was in K365 besides SOC, it was included in our packages. So what's now helped us is when we go sell one of our packages, we will say, hey, if you sign before the end of the month, we'll give you SOC for free. Well, hell, my cost is already built in. So it's not going to cost me anything. And I'm already going to give it to you anyway behind the scenes, but that's a sales tactic, right? Hey, if you sign up today, I'll give you our SOC for free, right? And so that's a way to get people to sign faster and get in front of people by giving something for free that even though it's not really free, you've got that cost built in. So to us, overall, with the integration and stuff, it was no brainer for us.
Looking at, for me, it was, primarily about filling some gaps. We were already in the midst of shopping at EDR and SOC services when Kaseya 365 was announced. So I immediately pivoted, went right back into Profit Fuel for my second time, and then it just made sense. I think the original time I went through Profit Fuel, it saved me $12,000 a year, and now I'm all the way up to $31,000 in savings a year going through Profit Fuel. This is by adding Kaseya 365. On top of that, my profitability is up, and then I filled in gaps in our services. Now we have full feature EDR, we have SOC services, we also have a different backup line of business that we could pursue as well. And so it's and for me, is I can compete against Will. Will's at 18 million. I'm at 3 million. Guess what? I have the same tool set as him now. I can compete against Will. So that's
Hey, easy. You can't say that.
I know, but and then the same thing is a smaller MSP, that may be chasing their first seven figure can now compete against me. And so,
Yep.
it opens up the industry in a whole different light where brand new MSPs can now have a tool set right out the gate to actually do full feature services. They actually can complete their stack a lot quicker than Will and I were able to complete our stack when we first got into it.
Hey, way up more and more I'm hearing Tommy talk. Mike, this is a bad idea.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions here from some attendees, and if you got them, go ahead and throw them into the chat or into the Q&A. Sean was asking, how do you deal with the overhead of making a change of something like an RMM or another integral part of your service?
Ooh.
I just went through it. Well, I think you went through it. So
yeah, Tommy, go ahead.
It's hard as heck. And so, it's never easy switching something like a major tool like RMM and PSA. We literally just went through it with Autotask and Datto RMM. We came over from Atera, just simply outgrew it. And then, so switching over to Autotask, what we did to battle the overhead was we pulled a tech out of our service delivery team and had it be their major focus. We figured if we can measure the overhead, we can measure the hours, the man hours a lot better if we just pulled a tech out and said, hey, this is your job. You have 60 days to do it. And then that's what we did. We had literally all of our QKIs for that quarter are, all of our focused on rocks or whatever language you want to speak. It was focused on getting that implementation and migration done as quickly and as smoothly as possible. And our goal was to get it, at 90%. We weren't chasing perfection, getting it back to where we can at least benefit the customers so they don't see any downtime, they don't see any ticket mishaps or anything. And through the whole process, I think at one time our SLA commitments fell below 90%, had 89% for like 2 weeks. And now we're right back up above 98% on the SLA commitments. So we did dip down. The overhead was challenging, but because of our profitability, we were able to pull somebody off the team.
Yeah, I think it's like anything that you do, set a goal, and Tommy mentioned rocks, which is the EOS process of managing, projects and your timeline. But just set a goal and be realistic with it, and make sure if you're a smaller company, make sure you designate certain amount of time to move the needle forward every single week, every single day, every single week. Even with a bigger company, it put it. I mean, we did 4 RMMs and 4 PSAs at the same time. That is not advisable. But we have a team to be able to handle that. But it's stress. It was a very stressful time for the whole team. But you can't say I'm going to turn that amount of data around in 60 days. I mean, it literally took us to get full integrations of everything. It probably took us 9 months to get everything done. And I think if and Mike can talk about this more, I think Kaseya has some, consulting services or professional services or something that can help, especially if you're a smaller company just trying to figure it out. Mike, I believe.
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
another consistent thing that you see is the folks that do spend time with those folks have not only a much easier transition, but a better experience throughout. It's that starting point. So highly encourage leveraging that team.
Okay.
Kaseya University was helpful to us.
Yeah.
Got a couple questions here for you, Mike, specifically about, Kaseya 365. First one from John here. Can dollars from flex spend be applied to additional Kaseya 365 licenses at the promo price?
So I saw this one pop up and I've been trying to get some teams to answer it. It's a little bit complicated in that typically flex spend, Kaseya 365 is the one product that's separate from that because it's already at such a discounted price. But when I pushed back and said because basically flex spend is any net new ARR that's coming in. So you're offering it to a new client base. Well, the last thing I got was like you'd have to talk to your manager. There could be some approvals. You'd have to go through some hoops. So I don't want to. I hate not answering it concretely. But the simple answer is it applies to net new ARR for one of the products. Typically, Kaseya 365 is the one that is not included, but I'll put my email in the chat. You could email me directly. I'll get you that answer. I'll put that in the chat right now.
Okay, I've got one more question about Kaseya 365, so I'll let you put that in the chat while you do that. A question earlier, and I just want to go back to it, was over in the chat. Faraz had asked, and I think I kind of was able to weave it, into what we talked about. But he was, they were asking about a good set of stacks for small to mid-sized companies. And so, we kind of talked through, we'll put into, the chat his, 9 things. And, Tommy, I think you answered that. So if you had more questions about that, Faraz, go ahead and put them into the chat or the Q&A, but just want to make sure you got what you needed for that. So Mike, back over to you with some Kaseya 365 questions. Billy was asking, does Kaseya 365 include a remote control tool?
Yeah, that's part of the RMM. So it's kind of called web remote control. So the short answer is yes. If you have any questions about it again, you can either
And
you guys want to chime in or.
now I confirm with that. And we actually have customers that use it. Obviously, my team uses it for remote, but my customers even use it to get into the machines at times. So yeah.
Same.
Okay. Cool. Jeff was asking, how do you handle the 5 terabyte per MSP limit for the included backup?
So I can give you our standard answer, but I honestly think because this is a question that comes up a lot. It's probably better to hear from you guys, to be honest, because you guys are the ones, dealing with the product itself. I mean, I don't know if you've come into any problems with it yet, or if you're anticipating any.
I'll go first. That's our October. We're integrating that in October. So right now we're on Spanning and Accent, and we're moving over those backups gradually to it. We'll cross that road. It's not limited to 5 terabytes, from my understanding. There is an upcharge, for additional space needed. But right now, I think it's very affordable, and it's nice having it in a single place.
Yeah, I don't do the tech anymore, so I have no clue. But I have been, I've talked to several, and yes, there is but pennies upcharge over the 5 terabyte is my understanding.
Yeah, it's 0.014 per gig after that. So
yeah,
that's the cost. So it's exactly right, about a penny and a half.
Okay. I have another one, different, Jeff, spelled different. But going back to, I think he's asking, going back to putting all your eggs in one basket, what if Kaseya gets hacked?
Can I answer that? That's the question I get answered all the time.
Or
It's, so everything's going to get hacked at one point or the other. Unfortunately, it's software, it's public, it's out there. What I recommend is one, knowing Kaseya and the inner workings, they're different databases, one. So you're not, every tool out there is not going to get hacked, right? Um, but I think you as the MSP and just like myself and Tommy, we have to make sure we take the measures to lock down MFA everything or single sign-on everything, lock down the environment so people can't get into our world of Kaseya or Kaseya, I think it's Kaseya 1, and just like any tool, right? Lock that down. I think Kaseya, yes, learned his lesson several years ago. CloudStrike a couple of weeks ago, they didn't get hacked, but not even a hack. Look, when Kaseya got hacked, it didn't cost as much as what CloudStrike cost Delta and Microsoft and others, right? So it's technology. Excuse me, shit's going to happen, and I think they've taken the proper measures. I know Fred is talking about getting the whole environment FedRAMP moderate compliant, which is a great win for everybody. And that's going to be a lot further than other tools out there as well. So it's you can live your life, and I'll shut up here and let Tommy, but you can live your life about the what ifs, or you can live your life about making a profit.
That's all I was going to add to it is you can live your life with the what ifs, or you can make a profit. The other thing I just wanted to add that is it doesn't matter. Just like Will said, it doesn't matter. Everybody could get hacked. It could happen to any of the vendors out there. And so that's my thing. You could focus on that, or you can focus on running your business and doing the best job you can do to protect your clients and protect your tools. Make sure the MFA's on there. Make sure your technicians are well trained. I mean, that's it. It doesn't keep me awake at night. It keeps me awake is worried about ransomware from my clients, but it is something I think about. It's something I think
Yeah.
about, but I'm not gonna.
It's a valid concern, right? I get it. It's a valid concern, but again, different databases. So it's not like everything is getting hacked. Everything's in a different database, different systems and stuff. Even though it pulls together with Kaseya 1. Micah, you can talk more about it than we can.
Yeah, well, I'll give a quick plug, and it's not a sales plug, but every quarter I do a webinar with Jason Minar, our CISO. And we pick a topic, and I learn something every single time. He came straight from the FBI. He still goes and does trainings to the FBI. And so he's really tuned in. You can go to our website and get to that link, but that's a great time to ask those questions. God bless Jason Minar. I wouldn't want that job, but he's very confident. And even our previous CISO, Ryan Weeks would talk about, if you're putting the right systems in place, he sleeps well at night, knowing that we're doing everything we can. So there's a huge focus on security on our end for sure.
Yeah. Okay, we are just about at time here. So I'm going to end with each of you kind of giving, your kind of one piece of advice or one takeaway or something. If someone would leave, it's just, I want you leaving with this when it comes to building and evaluating your tech stack. So if anybody's got their takeaway right now, go for it first. But if you're the one who's scrambling to think through it, just kind of keep your mouth shut for a minute.
If you don't mind, let me go first because I got another webinar to jump on in 2 minutes.
Okay.
And so I can leave you guys at it. My final thoughts is stop overthinking things. Take your engineer hat off, put your business hat on, and make a business decision and not a technical decision when you're looking at that. And I don't care, I know, love Kaseya, but I don't care what it is, right? Make a business decision when you're doing things, and integrate everything you can to make your life easier, your tech's life easier, and look at the bottom line costs, guys. That's my final thoughts.
Okay, we'll let you bounce early real quick before we get to Mike and Tommy's invaluable one key takeaway. Thank you, Will, for your time.
There you go.
Tommy, what's yours?
My one piece of advice is don't be overtooled. Don't get overtooled. Don't catch yourself in a trap or anything like that. We plan out our strategies for the year on an annual basis. We may pivot, if we need a tool, if we see that it's a different line of business, but we go about it through planning. Again, like Will said, we don't overthink it. We look at lines of business, we look at opportunities, we look at cost, and we look at profit. And then I hand it over to my service delivery team to take care of as far as a lot of the vetting. But I would say that's my one piece of advice is look at strategy, look at the business strategy behind it when you go to vet tools, especially when you're packaging them together. That's something I wish I would have known a lot sooner.
Yeah. Okay. Mike?
Yeah, and going third is hard because Will stole my business hat one, but I'll say I'll go back to the 4 points. When you're going around, this is beyond, beyond Kaseya 365. When you're talking to a vendor and you're vetting that vendor, whether it'll fit into your stack, does it solve a problem? Right? Does it actually work? Can it do what it says it's going to do? Are you going to be supported by that vendor? And then ultimately, and probably most importantly, am I going to make true margin off of it? Real, not just on the top level, but true net revenue that you're going to generate. Those are the 4 components I would be thinking about every vendor I talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being on here today. Again, a question that we get all the time, when we're asking people what they want to learn more about, I feel like, we got some amazing things that we covered in just this very short hour. Appreciate you guys being on here. Thank you for everybody for taking some time out of your day to learn how to be a better business owner of an MSP. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you on our next webinar. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. Bye.